What if I told you the revolutionary stealth technology of the F-35 was actually mastered by Sweden decades ago? Long before the world obsessed over low observability, Saab engineered the Flag System 2000, a forgotten ghost that predicted the exact requirements of modern Baltic defense. This is the story of the visionary jet that was too far ahead of its time. Imagine a fighter jet hidden in the Swedish woods, capable of devastating strikes before disappearing into the radar shadows. The Flag System 2000 wasn't just a blueprint, it was a lethal prophecy of high-intensity northern warfare. We are uncovering how this indigenous design pioneered the internal weapon bays and dispersed operations that define air superiority in 2026. Sweden almost changed the course of aviation history with a stealth fighter the world completely forgot. While superpowers struggled with early stealth, Saab's Flag System 2000 was already perfecting high-agility doctrine and low-observable profiles for the harshest environments on Earth. Discover why this abandoned masterpiece is still the ultimate blueprint for modern high-intensity aerial combat today.
What if Sweden imagined a stealth fighter before the world was ready to notice it? Not a giant American superjet, not a Russian heavy Predator, but something smaller, colder, and more dangerous in its own way. A fighter designed to hide inside Swedish forests, launch from secret road bases, strike at high speed, and disappear before the enemy could understand where it came from. This is the story of the FS2000, Sweden's forgotten stealth concept. It never entered service, never became famous, and never appeared as a symbol of Swedish air power. Yet in the Baltic defense environment of 2026, its ideas feel strangely modern. As Sweden now stands inside NATO and the Baltic Sea becomes one of Europe's most sensitive military zones, the FS2000 raises one powerful question. Did Sweden abandon the future, or did the future finally catch up with Sweden? To understand the FS2000, we have to return to the Cold War. Sweden was officially neutral, but its geography placed it dangerously close to the Soviet threat. In any major conflict, Swedish airbases would have been among the first targets. Runways could be destroyed, hangars could be hit, and aircraft parked openly on the ground could be lost before they even took off. This fear shaped Sweden's aircraft philosophy. The Saab Viggen was built to survive by operating from short roads and dispersed bases. Later, the Gripen carried that same survival logic forward, with quick turnaround, lower maintenance needs, and road-based capability. But even while Gripen was still being developed, Swedish engineers were already thinking about something more advanced, something that moved beyond speed and brute force.
By the 1980s, air combat was changing. It was no longer enough for a fighter to be fast or heavily armed. The real question was whether it could be detected. This is where the FS2000 entered the shadows. It represented a radical shift toward low observability, internal weapons carriage, clean shaping, and reduced radar signature. The goal was not only to build a fighter that could fight, but one that could create doubt in the enemy's mind. A radar operator would not see a clear target, only a confusing trace. That uncertainty was the real weapon. The FS2000 concept was not just a simple Gripen upgrade. It reportedly explored a faceted stealth-influenced airframe designed to reduce radar reflections and keep the aircraft harder to detect. But stealth is never easy. Every angle affects airflow, every internal weapons bay adds complexity, and every stealth feature creates challenges for stability, speed, and maintenance. Sweden could not build a delicate aircraft that needed perfect bases and huge support teams. Its fighter had to be stealthy, but also rugged, advanced, but practical, fast, but able to launch from roads, modern, but still usable by small crews under wartime pressure. This is what made the FS2000 so interesting. Its internal weapons bay was not only about stealth, it was about survival. External missiles and fuel tanks increased drag and radar visibility. A clean aircraft can move faster, hide better, and intercept more effectively. Imagine a Swedish fighter launching from a forest road into a dark Baltic sky, carrying its weapons hidden inside, giving enemy radar only a brief and uncertain signal. Not a roar, not a clear signature, but a question mark. Decades later, similar ideas would appear in modern fifth-generation fighters, like the F-35 and Su-57. But Sweden had already explored its own version of that logic.
The FS2000 also fit perfectly into Sweden's Boss 90 doctrine. Most air forces try to protect aircraft by building stronger bases. Sweden asked a different question. What if the base itself is the weakness? Boss 90 was designed to scatter aircraft across hidden road strips, forest locations, and temporary operating sites. Instead of giving the enemy one obvious airbase to attack, Sweden created many possible launch points. The FS2000 would have belonged to this world. It was not meant to sit safely in a luxury hangar. It was meant to land, refuel, rearm, and launch again from dispersed locations, often with small ground crews working under intense pressure. This gives the FS2000 story a human side. Behind every stealth shape and radar equation were pilots, technicians, conscripts, and commanders preparing for a war they hoped would never come. Young crews would have worked near frozen forest roads, keeping aircraft alive after missile strikes and surprise attacks. This was not glamour. It was national survival turned into engineering. And today, many NATO forces are relearning the same lesson. Large air bases are powerful, but they are also visible. Visible means targetable, and targetable means vulnerable. Sweden understood this decades ago. So why did the FS2000 never become reality? Because history changed. The Berlin Wall fell, the Soviet Union collapsed, and the threat that had shaped Swedish defense planning suddenly seemed less urgent. Across Europe, defense budgets were reduced, and expensive future aircraft programs became harder to justify. For Sweden, the practical choice was Gripen. It was affordable, real, upgradable, and already matched the country's dispersed operations doctrine. The FS2000 belonged to a future that politicians no longer feared, so it quietly faded away.
But ideas do not disappear completely. Research moves forward. Engineers carry knowledge into new programs, and stealth studies influence later designs. Saab's later work in advanced European unmanned aircraft projects showed that Sweden's interest in stealth, aerodynamics, and future air combat did not vanish. In 2026, Europe is again thinking seriously about stealth drones, electronic warfare, AI-assisted air combat, unmanned wingmen, and next-generation fighters. The strange truth is that the FS2000 may have died as an aircraft, but its philosophy survived. Now look at the Baltic theater today. Sweden is part of NATO, the Nordic region is becoming a stronger defense wall, and the Baltic Sea is filled with new military pressure, electronic threats, drone activity, and concerns about Russian movement. In this environment, the FS2000 no longer feels like an old Cold War dream. A stealthy Swedish fighter that could operate from roads, avoid easy detection, and survive after air bases were attacked sounds less like fantasy and more like a modern requirement. That is the dramatic irony of the FS2000. For years, it seemed like a forgotten project, something buried in Sweden's aviation history. But now, its core ideas feel more relevant than ever. Stealth, dispersal, ruggedness, short-field operations, and national survival. The FS2000 was not important because it became famous. It is important because it revealed how Sweden thinks. Not like a superpower, but like a country that understands vulnerability and turns it into strength. The FS2000 was Sweden's invisible predator before the world was ready for it. It was born from fear, frozen by peace, and vindicated by a dangerous new era. It never flew, but its shadow remains. Behind Europe's next-generation fighters, stealth drones, and future air combat systems, there is still a forgotten Swedish idea waiting to be remembered. A fighter that never entered the sky, but may still be shaping the future.